There have been some legitimate badasses in both the WWE and the UFC's history. Well, I mean, obviously in the UFC's case. But for many generations, pro wrestlers have stated that they are some of the toughest humans on the planet. Whether it was starting in the UFC and transitioning to a performance role in WWE, or going completely mental starting in the WWE and deciding it wasn't quite real enough for you, with varying degrees of success, here are the best and worst WWE and UFC crossover stars, starting with Best Brock Lesnar.
Frank Mir commented on big right hand.
Of course, let's get the obvious out of the way. I remember when Brock was first transitioning to UFC, my hardcore MMA friends talked all sorts of shit about him. He's a fake wrestler, he doesn't know what he's going into, all this sort of stuff. I tried to tell them that Brock was the craziest athlete I've ever seen, and that he's a former NCAA legitimate wrestling champion, and the fact that he became the youngest and fastest WWE champion in history means he takes his endeavors seriously. They didn't want to hear it, and they didn't even want to hear it after Brock won the UFC Heavyweight Championship and defended it 2 times. That's why you can't pay attention to the haters, ladies and gentlemen. Worst CM Punk.
CM Punk's in a lot of trouble right away, Mike. Yep.
This one hurts me. The feeling I had about Brock being a legitimate athlete and at least standing a chance were the exact opposite feelings I had about CM Punk trying his hand in the UFC. This guy so frequently messed up the springboard clothesline, I never believed for a second that he had much athleticism to show off. But I love him as a pro wrestler, and as a fan, I wanted to see him win. But he lost, badly in his first fight and soundly in his second. Credit to the man for fighting in the UFC, as it's something most of us will never do, something people who hate on him should probably remember. He didn't perform well, but he got in there, and that's more than most of us can say about ourselves.
I think that's it.
It is all over. Mickey, go! Submit CM Punk.
Best Ken Shamrock.
Hurricanrana by Shamrock.
He's going nuts again.
Ken Shamrock in the WWE was awesome. He had this great character where you knew he was a legit badass, but the UFC at the time was more of an underground, semi-legitimate sport. This added to Shamrock's aura, as he didn't seem like a glossy, dressed-up superstar, but an actual killer who wasn't right in the head. Shamrock would snap, screaming in the middle of the ring, and no one would be able to stop him. His ankle lock finisher was very believable and could come out of nowhere. As a UFC fighter, he's one of the original legends and deserves every bit of respect he's earned over the years. Why WWE never brought him back for a Royal Rumble appearance, I'll never know.
All power. Tremendous slam.
Worst, Daniel Cormier.
And Riddles hit him pretty hard, and DC said, I'm the law.
Daniel Cormier is one of the baddest dudes on the planet to this day. Though he's recently retired and packed on some pounds, he was never athletic looking to begin with, at least in his physique. Watching him compete in the UFC was an absolute pleasure, and that's where we really got to see his athleticism. A 2-division champion in the UFC, he briefly made a transition to WWE as a referee in the strange but cool Fight Pit match between Seth Rollins and Matt Riddle. At one point, he was meant to fight Brock Lesnar in the UFC during 2018, with the two getting in the octagon and Brock pushing Cormier pretty hard, but it never materialized.
Exactly what you gotta do.
Best Ronda Rousey.
With Stephanie on her shoulders. Oh, Stephanie.
There are lots of WWE fans who like to hate on Ronda, but let's first give her due. She essentially brought female fighting to the UFC. She was the first female UFC champion, and a dominant one at that. Prior to a shocking loss to Holly Holm, Ronda was undefeated in MMA, including a 6-fight win streak in the UFC where she finished all of her opponents. So many arm bars and a few good knockouts for good measure. After transitioning to the WWE, she has become a highly decorated competitor as a 3-time world champion and a Royal Rumble winner. Also, her superstardom likely led to WWE deciding to have the first ever women's main event of WrestleMania against Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. Fans might not like her, but for God's sake, she's earned the respect that's due to her. Worst, Dan Severn.
And here's Severn now, hammering away on flesh. That's fine.
Dan Severn debuted at UFC 4 and along with Ken Shamrock is regarded as one of the original stars of the UFC. He went on to have an MMA fight record of 101 wins and 19 losses. Along with his 7 draws, that means he got in the cage 127 times. He also was the reigning NWA heavyweight champion in the late 90s, so he was no stranger to pro wrestling either. In WWE, he struggled to connect with the fans in an era of over-the-top characters. Severn looked badass with his mustache and his 1,000-yard stare, but there wasn't much character beyond that. Creative reportedly asked him to tattoo 666 on his forehead and join The Undertaker's Ministry of Darkness, likely at the behest of The Undertaker, a longtime UFC fan. But Severn wasn't feeling it, and that was the end of him.
Armbar. Severn's gonna hyperextend the arm, or gonna break it, and Flash Truck gives it up.
Best Shayna Baszler.
It's all business with her. It's nothing personal at all.
Oh my God!
Shayna Baszler's MMA career seemed to be winding down by the time she was finally given an opportunity to compete on The Ultimate Fighter. Winning her first fight on the show via armbar, she was quickly dispatched by future winner of the show and future UFC champion Juliana Pena. She was given 2 fights in the UFC, losing by TKO to both Bethe Correia and the best female fighter of all time, Amanda Nunes. Due to her real-life friendship with Ronda Rousey, Baszler was given a chance in WWE NXT and knocked it out of the park. She has firmly established herself as a legitimate threat to any women's title in WWE and has been a part of some great moments. She recently won the women's tag team titles with Ronda, then betrayed her and beat her in the blow-off match. Sounds like something these two were planning from the very first day. Well done, ladies.
Oh my God, my.
Honorable mentions. Guys like Batista and Bobby Lashley started in the WWE before trying their hand at MMA. UFC fighters like Tank Abbott and Tito Ortiz were UFC stars who performed in other pro wrestling companies, but not the WWE. There are others, but this list is just for stars who have appeared in both major promotions, now combined as TKO. Worst, The Rock. I love The Rock. You love The Rock. Is there anybody alive that doesn't love The Rock? Probably not, but it was downright bizarre when he appeared in the UFC. No, he never fought there or in any MMA at all, which frankly makes his appearance even more bizarre. The Rock was on hand to award the BMF title to the winner of Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal. The BMF title stood for Baddest Mother Effer and was more of a showpiece than a legitimate championship. It's likely The Rock was brought in due to his Hollywood fame as opposed to his legendary status in the WWE, which knocks him down a little bit further on this list. Sorry, Rock, I'm always happy to see you. This appearance just doesn't rate you highly on this list. That concludes our list of best and worst WWE and UFC crossover stars. Who did we miss? Let us know in the comments below.